Welcome to Full Democracy on Tap. I'm Sarah Jane Crespo. High school students have a lot of choices when it comes to life after graduation. College application season is in full swing, but life after high school could also mean joining the workforce, trade school, or even taking a gap year. We'll hear from a panel of high school and college students tonight. But first, I recently interviewed Laura Barker of USD 259's College and Career Readiness Department. She sets the stage for our discussion. Let's listen.
The university for all mentality is still run strong in our education system as a whole in the United States, but we really are trying to break that down and show successes for everything. With the Wichita Public Schools, we are currently implementing the Graduation Plus program. And what that is that saying, in addition to meeting the minimal graduation requirements, we want you to leave with something else. And that something else would be a work-based learning opportunity, like an internship or an industry recognized credential. So I am totally fine if you say, no, I'm not going to college, Ms. Barker. I'm going to go and be a welder.
That was a really interesting discussion, and we're going to circle back around to it. But first, let's meet our panel. We have two seniors from USD 259, Jordan Belton and Zainab Khan. We also have WSU Tech student Sutton Kilgore and Wichita State University freshman Brian Tran. Welcome to all of you. Jordan, let's start with you. You're still undecided in some regards as to where you'll be come next year. So what are you considering in making your choice after high school?
Well, I want to go into medical school. So I'm looking for schools that will give me the opportunity to prepare for myself, because getting into medical school is a big deal. So I want to make sure that I'm prepared with my undergraduate class. But another big factor is the cost. College is extremely expensive, and my parents are both public school teachers. So we're trying to find a way to pay for college. So in-state is a very likely option, but there's also a lot of out-of-state schools that will give scholarship for example, for IB credit, which is the program I'm in at East. And some of the private schools tend to give out more money. So I'm looking into those. And I also don't know how far I want to go from home. During quarantine, my family was forced to spend time with each other, and we found out we like each other. So it's
what a shock.
I know it'll be interesting to live away from home.
So did you always kind of have pre-med in mind, or like, are you from Wichita, and is this sort of what you were always looking to do?
I am from Wichita. One thing that did help me decide medicine was the fact that my mom's from Mexico. So I've seen the healthcare system in Mexico, and it made me realize that that was something I wanted to do, was to go to places like Mexico and give more opportunities, rural areas. So that was in probably about middle school when I realized that it was something that I was very passionate about.
Okay, well, thank you, Jordan. And Brian, let's come to you next. You've almost finished your first semester at college at WSU. How did you make that choice to end up with WSU?
I made that choice because WSU was close to home, and also I could live at home because I'm from Wichita, and it was much more affordable than like KU or K-State or any of schools I would have to board at.
Okay, and you're just a freshman, but do you know kind of where you want to go with your degree?
Yeah, so right now I'm a mechanical engineering major, although I'm thinking about health field a lot more. So I'm heavily considering transferring over to biomedical engineering, and then also taking pre-med prerequisites because of an internship I held just this last summer.
Okay, and are you so far happy with the decision to go to WSU?
Yeah, I think it's pretty nice. The only thing I don't really like is the commute, because I could live a little bit farther away. But other than that, I like the atmosphere and that it's a state school, so I have a lot of opportunities that are still open to me. And other than that, I think it's a pretty great school.
It seems like, WSU gets a fair amount of accolades for engineering types of career options. Do I don't know when it was that you thought mechanical engineering might be the way that you want to go, if that helped you decide on WSU also, or if it was the other way around and you were looking at the things that WSU excels in and sort of choosing one of those options.
Yeah. So in high school, I took a engineering design course through WSU at my high school. And so that kind of gave me a little exposure because we had a representative from the School of Engineering come down to our high school and talk to us about it before we all enrolled in that class. And so that kind of gave me the first glimpse into it. And then also while researching schools that were like affordable for what I wanted to do, WSU really stood out because it like pretty much just checked all the boxes that I wanted.
All right, well, thank you, Brian. Sutton, let's come to you next. You've had a non-traditional path to where you are now. Can you share your story from high school to WSU Tech?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2006 and ended up getting a job with the city of Wichita on a survey crew a couple days after I graduated. So I had orientation there. Wasn't real sure what I wanted to do after high school, but it was a good place to get my foot in the door. And so I've been doing that the last 16 years. Last winter, got in on a survey crew. You spend quite a bit of your time outdoors working. Got a little cold last winter and started thinking about my future. I have 3 sons, very active with, so a lot of important time with them. Didn't think at 65 that's something I really wanted. So started looking around at some of the different colleges, and WSU Tech, they had what it's called a shocker pathway. So you can start at WSU Tech, get some of your courses out of the way, and then transfer to WSU. Just made it really simple. So ended up one of the things I love about my job is planning out. I work on a bunch of different projects around the city at one time, and I love kind of being able to plan. I know where each project's at and when we need to get there. So I started looking into supply chain and logistics, and WSU Tech had a program for it and got signed up for it and really enjoying it so far.
So is that work that you're talking about, is that something that you've been doing with the job that you've had for the last 16 years, you said, or is this something that you're doing now through WSU Tech?
So the supply chain and logistics, that's something completely, it's completely new. It's not something that we directly deal with like in surveying. So it has a part in it though, just having to know, where different jobs are at different stages, kind of ties in with supply chain and logistics. You have to know what's coming in, when you can get your inventories ready to ship out and things like that. So it's along the same kind of basis, but I mean, different types of work.
Gotcha. This is when you're in the WSU Tech program, you do work kind of out in the field or a combo of that plus classroom. What is the learning like?
So for the supply chain, it's all classroom right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of more what I'm trying to actually get geared towards, kind of get away from being outdoors and things of that nature. So I'm enjoying it.
Excellent. Thank you, Sutton. Zainab, let's come to you. Your plans for after high school are also a little bit different. I'd like to know how you made your choice and sort of found the program that you will be entering into.
So just to preface it, kind of going from middle school into high school, I was super set on going into medical, like specifically obstetrics. And my sophomore year of high school, I started student coaching for a biology class, which both like health sciences and English are two of the subjects I'm very passionate for. And going into this biology class, I've always been in like a certain environment. In elementary, I went to a private school, so I've always been around the same people, middle and high school as well. Like I also attended, or I'm also in the IB program, so I've always been around similar people, and this has like significantly not limited it has limited my exposure to certain situations. And going into this bio class, I was familiar with the material, so I enjoyed teaching it to kids. But I also got to build these relationships with these students where I had students like after a period of time coming to me being like, guess what? I figured it out, or I did it, or getting to see those little light bulb moments and seeing students being able to realize that they have potential. Or whenever students would say like, what's the point of trying if I'm not going to get anywhere? And just being able to work with them and being there like both as a mentor as well as a friend. I think that experience is every single one of those interactions, and to this day, those relationships that I still have with those kids.
And
That
what
kind of
grade were you? What grade were you in when you were doing that?
sophomore year.
Sophomore year. Okay, sorry. Go on.
But all of those kind of prompted me to look more into education. And right now, I'm kind of deciding between secondary education or teaching as a professor at a university. But on that, I decided to explore this year to see if that's actually something I wanted to do. And I'm taking teaching as a career as a course through dual credit with WSU, as well as hopefully student coaching for an ESOL class next semester to see if in a diverse classroom, if I'm able to break the boundaries that would be there.
Very good. So can you describe a little bit more what the program is? Just describe the program a little bit more.
For student coaching?
Yes.
So for student coaching, it's being able to be present in the classroom as kind of like a mini teacher's assistant of a sort, where alongside the teacher, you're able to go ahead and help students learn the material. So during work time, being able to explain it. It does differ depending on which teacher you're working with, but sometimes they'll have the students go ahead and teach a lesson or do something along those lines. But it's being there as like a mentor, and also being there as someone that these kids can rely on, because like often in class, it's really difficult to find a comfortable space. And then for the teaching as a career program, it's connected to Educators Rising, which is sort of like DECA or like programs like that, where they provide opportunities for after you graduate or possible paths that you want to take. And with education specifically, actually I believe it was last week, there was a regional conference and we were provided with multiple seminars, presentations about what we can do after we graduate, as well as the opportunities that we have inside a classroom and possibilities for us to take then.
That's very exciting. Is this a new program? Do you know?
Not too sure.
Interesting. Is it kind of carried by, or you're learning in the classroom, but then do you also have time in a college classroom as well?
Not at the moment, no. So for the teaching as a career program, we do have to get experience within another classroom, and we do plan to go to a middle school next week. So being able to get that firsthand experience there, and then with student coaching, you can request a specific class to get the experience you want there, or you could be placed wherever, if you decide for it to be random, that could also be done.
Interesting. And then at the end of the program, is there a certification or an accreditation of some kind that you have?
For student coaching, I'm not sure. I don't think there is, but for teaching as a career, you do get that credit for university if you were to take that class. So that would be part of whatever you needed to get your education degree or license. And then if not, it also still works as one of your credits that could go into your classes.
And is that your plan, or do you know which way you'll go with it yet?
At this point, I do definitely feel really passionate about it. So I think that is something I will go towards. I still have a little bit more to explore as to what level of education I would like to teach. But I'm pretty set on it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Zainab. For those just joining us, I'm Sarah Jane Crespo with KMUW, and this is Digital Democracy on Tap. We're talking about the choices young Wichitans are making and how they're making them with high school seniors Jordan Belton and Zainab Khan, WSU Tech student Sutton Kilgore, and college freshman Brian Tran. I want to play another clip from Laura Barker at USD 259, and I'd like to get everyone's thoughts on this after we listen, starting with Sutton, because Laura also told me that there is genuine focus on opening the doors to multiple options right out of high school, and I think that would be good to get your perspective on. So let's listen.
The high school students typically are screaming for relevance. They don't want to take a class just for the sake of taking a class. So if we can tell them how this class is preparing them for their future and how business and industry is looking for this, or we can offer a credential in the class that they can take with them and use it to market themselves. I think that they really like that. So we want kids to leave with an entrepreneurship experience, an industry recognized credential, a work-based learning internship work experience, or some college or concurrent credit.
So Sutton, I find it interesting listening to what is happening now in USD 259, the kind of guidance that students are getting and just the care that is taken with helping them to plan what their futures might hold for them. So for you, did that kind of relevance really play a role in your decision, or is this, you think, more a recent phenomenon?
To me, this is something a little more recent, kind of what they're talking about now from when I graduated. There wasn't a lot of guidance or here, let me give you some options and maybe push you towards this that you're interested in. A lot of it was general studies and, get into college afterwards. So, I mean, hearing her talk about, if you want to be a welder, let's look at that, or a plumber, or whatever it may be. The trades, that's incredible to hear that they're gearing kids towards that now. I wish it was something that was looked at when I was in school.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too when I was in school sometime before you were, that, I remember maybe having one career quiz in all of my high school time. And Ms. Barker was telling me about, students kind of being checked in with multiple times every year. So I don't know if you're sort of in between my experience and our other panelists' experiences here, but do you remember any kind of guidance at all, or was it pretty much just, everyone should go to college? And
for me, from what I remember, it was just a lot, colleges where, where you'll find your furthering education.
Yeah.
And for some kids, it's great. For others, it's not. And then there's people like me who worked and then decided, school was the route at that point. So I think the fact that they're giving kids options, these kind of options and helping them that's incredible.
Very interesting. Well, thank you, Sutton. And for the rest of you, how did that audio, what did you think of that? Do you feel like that's a pretty good representation of your high school experiences, that you had a lot of support and a lot of conversations and help making a plan and a plan B and a plan A as well?
Well, one thing I do think that they've done better about helping us choose courses that are great for our field. Like right now, I have the opportunity to take biology, chemistry, and psychology at the same time. And I don't have to take classes like calculus, not my thing. But I do think the pandemic really hurt that, because especially with college applications, my junior year, I had little guidance. We're not told what needed to be done until about this year, and that was when we should have already had our things started. So I don't know if that was just for college applications, because I'm in a college readiness course and program, but there was just, the communication was lacking last year. But I do think that this year it's gotten better. I've been offered a lot more opportunities to do things like geared toward the medical field. Like last Saturday, I went to an event at KU Medical School where we just had a bunch of little opportunities to explore different fields. But last year it just wasn't there.
I think for me, I definitely do think like we are given a lot of resources to use in terms of whether we want like college counselors or all of that. But I do think it's very difficult at times to find a lot of the answers that we need because there's only so much guidance that we can receive whenever a lot of those decisions and a lot of those applications that we're doing fall into our own hands and on our own time. And it definitely gets really hard. And especially now, like Jordan said, it was a lot more difficult during the pandemic, particularly like a lot of students felt significantly more unmotivated, and especially whenever we're more confused on what we need to do or certain deadlines, it becomes really difficult to get those done as well as find or actively look for the resources that we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems like for the two of you who are high school seniors now, and then for Brian, who was a senior last year, really different challenges, but pretty significant challenges all around. Brian, did you have things kind of set up for yourself mostly before COVID hit, or what was your senior year like, and how much did that affect where you are now?
So with my senior year, it made it kind of rough because my school decided to go on a hybrid schedule. So effectively, the amount of time we had each class was cut in half throughout the week. And so when taking like AP classes, which are on a strict schedule to get through all the information you need to have before the AP test, it was kind of rough in that sometimes we would have to do self-study at home because there wasn't enough time in the classroom to go through all the material that we needed. And there were like events and other things that were canceled that were like normally are there, like dances and like all that kind of stuff. And there's just a lot of things that would be part of the high school experience, I guess you could say, that just wasn't there for us.
Yeah, I wonder if, the lacking in some of those rites of passage or those ceremonial things that would normally be there in your senior year. What's your read on how other students coped with that? Was there just less enthusiasm for going into, I don't know, did it change how people felt about going to college? I mean, what was the effect? Maybe I'm spinning it out too far, but what did you see that it did for your classmates?
I'm not really sure if it affected if certain people went to college or not. I'm not sure if that was the deciding factor besides maybe financial reasons. But all I really saw was we just kind of had to do things on our own a lot more because there was less help, I guess, from our schools and just like external resources. It became like the information was there, but you had to find it on your own.
Yeah, and that's tough when we haven't become accustomed to doing that yet. So yeah, that becomes a big obstacle. Well, thank you. Jordan, I'd like to come back to you here. You brought up how the pandemic affected your learning last year and your experience last year a little bit. Are there some other ways that COVID has impacted your college trajectory, or are there some other things that you hadn't mentioned yet about how COVID is or has affected what's happening now for you or your classmates?
Well, I do know that online classes I will not be taking. I do not function well online. I need to be in front of students and teachers. So I think that didn't necessarily limit my college choices, but I know that when I choose my classes wherever I go, that's something I will do. But I do think the pandemic did give me time to focus on what I wanted to, online classes, I could tune out and maybe do homework for the class to do, or look up something interesting that I found online. So I do think it gave me the opportunity to kind of go away from the traditional education. I also had to teach myself a lot of things, and I learned what worked for me. But at the same time, if it was something like math or English that was not my thing, it's not a science class, then teaching myself, I really struggled. I did see a decrease in motivation. I've said there was just, I like the IB program is hard, and there was a time where I didn't want to do that, and I would have lost a lot of college credit because it just got to the point where it was a lot of work, and it didn't seem like it was going anywhere.
Interesting. Thank you, Jordan. Sutton, I want to come back to you here because the next thing that kind of happened when COVID, all of the effects of COVID were dominoing all around our country, was the way it impacted the economy. And so I'm wondering if you're concerned about making a living in our current economy, and just if you feel prepared, and if the program you're in is, or to what degree the program you're in is helping with that.
Yeah. So when I picked the program, that's actually kind of one of the things I always try to look at is, what in the future, what's something that's going to be needed. So, and right now with what COVID's done to the supply chain, with all the ships backed up and, entire countries overseas, they'll just shut down, and a lot of business are still feeling, a lot of effects from it. I'm not necessarily worried right now. I mean, just when I get online and look for, jobs right now and available jobs, there's tons to be had. So at this time, no, there's not a lot of concern. And seeing how, we get a lot of things shipped to us now, and not just us as end consumers, but businesses and business to business transactions still happen, quite frequently. So I think I should be okay with it.
Very good. Yeah. Choosing the right job future.
Yeah.
Difference. Oh, very good. Well, Zainab, do you think that those sort of non-traditional post-graduation pathways, such as the one that you're heading into, that those options should be emphasized more rather than pushing that 4-year degree? Or do you feel like now there is equal time given to different possibilities and options after graduating high school?
Sure. So I think that there could definitely be a little bit more exploration, or just like verbal communication of possible opportunities that students could take. I definitely do think there's been a very large push for career quizzes, or websites like Zello or things like that. But I think even then, students aren't particularly, the majority of the time, they're not super passionate about doing that. However, whenever we had things like college fairs, or just being able to talk to other people about possibilities, it was significantly more impactful in that we could look at different things that we're good at or things that we'd enjoy. And I think keeping an emphasis on things like that would be really helpful. I think it's also very much up to a person, to an extent, to go ahead and try to explore a little bit once they're provided with those opportunities.
One of the things that I talked with Laura Barker about was that at the end of those career quizzes, that you have this ranking just for you of what the careers are that maybe would be a fit. What were your top ones, or were there a few that you are kind of still thinking about, different possibilities?
Actually, a lot of mine fell into the medical field, and I definitely think if it's something I put my mind to, I could do it. It doesn't fall into, although it's something I would enjoy, I don't think it falls into my goals for life. So that's mainly why I kind of went away from it. Whereas with education, I still get to help people. I still get to have a direct impact. I still get to build relationships, and I still get that time that I want for myself. to be able to honestly enjoy my time.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are so many factors to think about when we when we're planning our futures. And it has been really interesting to hear all of that from you all. I'd like lastly to just get each of you to share with me any ideas that you have, things that might have occurred to you over the last couple of years, just about what school officials or the community can do differently or better to prepare students for whatever is next for them. What are some things that might be better? Brian, do you want to start us off on this one?
I think that some things that schools, at least for my school in particular, could do better was just communicating about things that we should do if we want to go down a certain route. So for example, my school didn't inform us about the PSAT at all. So I didn't know about that until after the deadline had already passed. And there were some other things like scholarships and things of that nature, or just things weren't communicated very clearly. And so as a student that would like to participate in those things, I didn't have the opportunity to.
Brian, do you feel like it was because of the pandemic that a lot of things were sort of falling by the wayside, or is it that there wasn't a good enough process yet because some of these things are new?
I'm not sure, because with the PSAT, that's been something that's been around for a bit. And it may have something to do with COVID, but I don't think COVID really caused it to be like that. I think the only thing that COVID caused is that like we realized how little we were being told about these things.
Interesting. Well, thank you. Jordan, would you like to go next?
I do think communication is a big one. I'm seeing it more at my schools. Like the communication is improving, and I think I really like our college career coordinator, Miss Kennedy. She's very involved, and she sends out a lot of emails with a lot of opportunities. But I do think it's important that they let us know what is involved in each path. If we're going to do medicine, what is the pre-med path? Engineering, if you want to be a welder, how do you get there? And so I think having those classes and like opportunities to gain college credit or maybe like a certificate really helps students understand what they're getting themselves into, because I know a lot of people go into college having no idea what they're going to do, and something like college costs money. Outside, if you don't really have a idea of what you want to do, like outside of college, there's some leeway, but you still have to get a job because you have to make money. So it's about figuring out, at least having an idea of what works for you before you leave high school, because that's when the consequences get real.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jordan. Sutton, how about you?
Kind of mimicking. I mean, I know I've been out at the school for a little bit, but mimicking what they said. I mean, both of them have very good points. Giving kids options and showing them, the different careers. I mean, growing up through school, I knew what a doctor did. I knew what a firefighter did. I'd never heard of what a supply chain analyst did. I didn't know. You see people that own companies. Well, you don't have to be an inventor to own a company. There's different paths and successes kids can take, and I think opening up all doors to all different kind of careers is important. And so and it sounds like they're trying to improve on it, so it's exciting. Makes me happy for my kids being in school now, still at a young age. Excited to see what it'll be like when they're seniors in high school.
Very good. Yeah, I'm excited by it too. It sounds like good stuff. Zainab, you have the last word.
There's definitely a lot of different paths for every single individual, emphasizing that through communications and being able to ensure that every single student is offered opportunities where they can find that path is really important, to be able to have an entire population of people running the world that we're going to live in, especially with the place we're in now, it's just being able to work with each other to emphasize that and make sure that we're working together to actually get there.
Very good, thank you. And thank you all for such an interesting discussion. I hope that you've enjoyed our program. This Digital Democracy on Tap conversation is sponsored by Susan and Leon Mader of Mader and Associates. I'm Sarah Jane Crespo. Thanks for joining us, and tell your friends and family that they can watch this conversation on our website, kmuw.org, under the Events tab.